Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's PWROn video for our new card, ANTI-VENOM. He is a Series 5 card, and Greg and I are going to talk about them. My name is Nick the Greek Geek, and I've got Gregor here.
Hi everyone, I'm Gregor or Gregor2424. You can find me all over the internet for Marvel Snap things, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. The only place it's a little bit different is Twitter/X. It's Gregor_2424. And I'm also a PWROn member.
Okay, so this week we have the new Series 5 card, ANTI-VENOM. I'll pull its stats up right here. ANTI-VENOM is an on-reveal. Set the cost and power of your deck's top card to 0. Recently buffed before release as well, but a solid 4/7 body, which is at least good stats. It's an expensive card with limited applications. I think it has some promise for some interesting play in decks. But the question is it worth that money? What are your thoughts on it? Have you had a chance to use it much this week?
A little bit. I've been able to play him a tiny bit. I have some lists that I'm gonna try him out in. STG got a infinite avatar with him, so I don't know. Honestly, if you are a newer player and you are missing a lot of cards, I would most likely recommend skipping on ANTI-VENOM. Yeah, there's probably other cards that you can get for those resources that will be better for you. Offer more flexibility, less niche.
Yeah, agreed. It's tough because, it's not a week where the spotlights are phenomenal. It's a week where the spotlights tend to be pretty high skill ceiling, and I think that goes the same with ANTI-VENOM. It's a good card, but it's just not an easy card to just pick up and play. I think at this point, I don't know if the best decks are even close to being found. I don't know if this is its final iteration, but I do know that it's interesting. It doesn't have the same kind of clippable gameplay that something like Scorn did, or even Toxin had some unique moments where if you could bounce him back up and really buff him up, playing ANTI-VENOM and getting something like a 0/0 Iron Man, a 0/0 Mystique, a 0/0, it kind of fits in a negative archetype in that respect because it wants zeros. But there's some unique decks that I actually did a search on Untapped to look for the top decks, both for win rate and cubes, pre and post infinite. And I've included those in the links down below with a description of what's in the deck. So if you want to take a look at that, it's just right down there. It's a card that's doing okay. The decks that it can be built around can be expensive if you're a newer player. If you've been in it for a while and you have cards that will fit within that archetype, and you'll see some unique decks that we're going to display today. There's a couple that are similar, but there's a few that I wouldn't expect to have seen ANTI-VENOM in, and it provides a unique take on it. But is it a unique enough take to waste your tokens or to spend your tokens? Sorry, I'm maybe giving away my feelings on it, but what are your thoughts as far as tokens go? Like, I know you said that if you're still missing a ton of cards, to skip this one.
I used keys this week. I did not use tokens. I'm saving them. I wanted Supergiant. The Ghost Spider is kind of meh for me, the Spotlight. But like you said earlier, they're both very high skill ceiling cards compared to like something that's pretty easy to play like Scorn, where, discard her, you get value out of it.
It's tough because, you want the new cards to be exciting. You want them to be interesting. You want them to provide some reason to grab the card. Sometimes it's, okay, well, the card in the spotlight's not the best, but hey, look at the other cards that are along with it. But I think it's tough when you match up the 3 cards, there's not a lot of synergy between them. And again, it's that high skill cap. And chances are people that can play with that high of a skill cap most likely have Ghost Spider, they most likely have Supergiant, and they've already dominated with those. I think what we should do is just get into the gameplay videos, see what's going on. We got a limited amount of clips, but I think there's a multitude of reasons for that. Number one, again, being that higher skill cap card, being the last card of the month, but it's also Pokemon release week, and I think that's taken a lot of people away from Snap. I know you've had a fun run at Pokemon and you've been enjoying it, but
and the Bazaar is in closed beta right now. That's another one.
It takes people away from being as excited, especially if the card isn't anything super exciting to begin with.
I will say we have some really cool cards coming next month, though. I'm very excited for Fenris, and I'm very excited for Gore the God Butcher.
I think both of those are going to be very, very interesting cards to see how they interact with the meta and what kind of changes that they make. I'm hoping to see stuff like Thor come back in because I do have my Throg variant. I might as well try and get use out of it.
I'm jealous that you got a perfect freaking, you got a God pack in vault mode.
I did.
You got all You got every single like super rare variant.
I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or if that's just the game telling me, hey, we know you. Here, do this.
I wouldn't be, let's just say I wouldn't be complaining if I had Throg.
Yeah, that's very fair. I fully understand that. Okay, well, let us get into game clips now. The first we have up is Gaming with Flash X, who is a very unique style player. He has his, discard and destroy packages, but he loves testing out new things, and he is up in the top ranks. Like I believe when I checked the other night, he was in the top couple hundred at the very most. So he's had some very unique games with this. The deck that he used was a combination Sentry, Shadow King, Cersei deck, which I think works really well. Anyway, let's get into Flash's video.
So, witness the power of anti-venom.
Doing that Sentry, Shadow King, Cersei package to kind of prevent against any other crap coming up behind him. Yes, and Shadow King in the same deck. He's kind of got everything in there to do weird afflictions. Anti-Venom, Cersei are all Series 5 cards. That is a lot of Series 5 cards in a deck, and if it's going to require that kind of deck, and that's why I'm interested in seeing what happens with this, because if people can find a deck where you can run this card a bit cheaper, I mean, that's going to be your ideal situation. That's your dream.
I like that it's using a lot of cards that aren't normally used. Like the fact that Valentina's in this list is interesting to me.
Yep.
Like Valentina did not get a lot of usage.
She really didn't. And it goes to show in like the spotlight caches, because she's been in once and she's not coming up again until I think mid next month. And here's Flash's second.
Still okay. And that turns into... I think people were getting about that.
I completely forgot about the location.
Fully did, 100%. Yeah, and you know what? I can actually appreciate that, because I am in that same spot. I have forgotten about that location so many times now, it's not even funny. And when I discovered about this location, it is only the first player that plays all their cards there. So if they took it up first and Flash had filled it up, whoever reveals first, whoever has priority, they are the ones who get chomped by and turned into a symbiote. So it's good to know. I don't think that marketing was on the tin for the location. So if you ever do see, what was the location named again?
It's the church where Eddie gets the symbiote.
Oh, yes. Church of Saints, I think, or something like that.
Yeah. It's a Catholic church, y'all. Daredevil style. But
there
with symbiotes.
He's using an expensive deck, but it does provide a use for cards that people might not otherwise be playing. Like, I can't think of the last time I played Cersei. I know some of the top players do, but it's a high skill cap card. It is not a card that you can just pick up and throw down on the board and know what you're doing, because there's the RNG aspect of it, which, I mean, Flash is Mr. RNG for a reason. Lufku had a couple interesting decks. His first was an Affliction Ajax that we'll cover, and then his last two were a negative Sarah deck with Ravonna Morph in there. I love Lufku singing all throughout. Yeah, and fun fact, Gregor and I actually recorded this video previously, and my computer decided to crap itself. So we would like to say that we are surprised by this gameplay, but unfortunately we are not. But
I have ADHD. Speak for yourself. I don't remember what happened.
Fair. I remember this game very well. It was an emotional roller coaster for the man all throughout. Like, had they not played that grapple arrow on Jotunheim, they win the game. That's going to be how it goes. Yep, there you go. Let's take a look at Lufku's other clip using the same deck, just slightly different matchup. So free Iron Man from Lufku, which is never a bad thing, and going against a Surfer deck, which can put out a lot of power. Like, and then there's his Raft Galactus, which did very little good. But I mean, you think, hey, a 0-cost 6 power is still 0-cost 6 power. Against a double Ironheart and a double Iron Man in a negative deck, yeah, that's not going to do you anything.
The Wongs.
Yep, the Wongs definitely made a difference there. This is the kind of thing, like, this is a relatively inexpensive deck. It's got stuff like Ravonna, which is a Series 4 card, so it's not super cheap. But I think that's really the only major card. Negative itself is a relatively cheap deck if you are well into Series 3.
And it has very, very obvious win conditions, which I like for newer players. Newer players have trouble knowing when to snap. Negative teaches you when to snap.
Okay, and for Lufku's last clip, still doing the same negative affliction deck, so we'll take a look at that one. This one, I don't think he got the luck of having an Iron Man, but
It's gonna be a Juggernaut.
the opponent copied their
Please don't be
Mystique.
Juggernaut. No.
Just a Black Widow, because there's nothing worse than getting Cosmoed or Juggernauted
Couple of
on your Wong lane. Like, that just makes you want to cry. I
come
think for this one, it was a
Come on.
many hit Iron Man, or Ironheart, sorry.
One more. There we go.
Yeah.
I got to Infinite the season before Sage with a negative deck. And being able to play that Sage, or being able to play just that big card and then copying it with a 0-cost Taskmaster is a really nice way to win the game.
Before they made the change to Taskmaster, at least.
I mean, if you've got the right negative hand, he can still
Yeah.
be a good card. Now we are going to play a couple clips from Devilish, who always gets in on that first day and makes sure to try the card out as much as he can. So let's take a look at his video. I love his background. I think he's going up against an Erisham deck here. It's the only reason that I could see Adam Warlock in a deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, other
Agreed.
than-
Thank you, Mr. Anti-Venom.
yeah, taking a look at the board state, again, you've got a negative Tribunal deck. The question is, did Anti-Venom make this play? Like, would this have been just as possible with a different card?
Well, it was a free onslaught, so I would say no. Anti-Venom gave a free onslaught. Luke Cage set it back to normal. He was able to copy the onslaught on top of the Sarah, then the Iron Man. So essentially 2 onslaughts. I don't think you would be able to do that normally with negative.
That's very true. The number of times that you can do it are slim to none. I guess the question comes down to, okay, he was able to do it in this situation. What are the chances that those are the games that you're going to get regularly? But then that's a negative deck too. That's my experience with negative, is that you're going to miss more often than you hit. And you'll see that reflected in the untapped decks. The negative decks have a higher cube rate, but a much lower win rate. It comes back to that knowing when to snap.
Yep.
Do you think you're going to try a negative deck with Anti-Venom, or do you think you want to try more of the Flash style with stuff like Cersei and Valentine?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do more creative stuff outside of, because I've seen a few with negative at this point. I'm the person who's like, everybody else is doing that. I want to do something. I want to be different. Flashes looked really interesting. I'll probably give Flashes a go. But I have 2 other lists that I'm going to try as well.
Well, let's take a look at Devilish's next clip. It's still Tribunal. Going against a deck that's like the big 10s is pretty impressive.
Watch my Iron Lad.
This is the danger of a Tribunal deck.
You can go from 0 to hero in a second. I will say the best time to drop that Luke Cage is that final turn.
Unfortunately, you can't do both an Iron Lad and a Luke Cage last turn unless there's a turn 7.
Or unless you have Anti-Venom in the mix and you know what card you're going to be getting. All right, well, let's take a look at his last clip.
Do we see if we get Living Tribune?
And here we go. He's got a 1 in 3 shot to make this work.
He hits it, but he hits the natural nemesis of Tribunal, and that is U.S. Agent.
It goes from happiness to sadness all in one. And sadly, the biggest miss that he had was that Luke Cage. Like you're saying, unless you have that extra turn.
You need a turn, an extra turn, or you need,
Do we see?
yeah, cost reduction of some kind.
I mean, this is the kind of thing that who is going to expect a US agent to come out on the opponent's side? He got a little bit more popular after the buff, but it's not like he's a card that you can really plan for, which also I think makes him that much more powerful. Because I think Flash had a US agent in his deck, right? Because he was doing the affliction style. Yeah, so
Yeah, U.S. Agent's a great card. Could potentially go, he could be up to like a 212, which is wild.
or if you're trying something like this and you've got an Iron Man in a lane without any protection against it, things get rough real quick.
Right.
Okay, let's take a look at Devilish's last clip. His final one, he's going up against the 10s deck. He just knows what his Iron Lad is going to hit. A flipped 0/5 Iron Man is so powerful to begin with.
You get it into that lane and it does its job.
It does a job very, very well. And being able to, again, put Luke Cage down on that last turn and just be able to flip everything immediately is incredibly powerful. How do you combat against that? Again, it's a Series 5 card. It's got potential. I know you've got some extra decks that you're going to try playing now, but what do you think in the grand scheme of things? Who should aim for this card? What players do you think would best suit a card like ANTI-VENOM?
I honestly think we need more time, to be honest. Like, I still think we're very early on, similar to how it took a while for people to find where Misery fit in. It's going to take a little while for people to figure exactly where anti-venom fits in within the meta. I think people right now are still in the theory crafting stage. Tribunal, negative, basically anything that gives you value being in a 0-0 ongoing or a 0-0 on reveal, that's valuable. And potentially some upcoming cards. I could see good value if you were able to get anti-venom into Gore, for example, because Gore by himself is already at a negative, so you actually boost him by making him 0-0.
And I realize that also works for stuff like the Hood too, and Mr. Negative. If you hit Mr. Negative with anti-venom,
It's a positive.
yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. I'll take a 0 over a negative anything. I think at the end of the day, it is a complicated spotlight week. This is one of the easier ones to say, well, maybe hold off and
Yeah.
just wait. It's tough because we don't know if or when he's going to be coming back into the spotlights. We don't know if he's going to get changed. He could get a buff, on Monday afternoon. And if that's the case, if he does get a last minute buff and there are some changes, keep an eye out on your favorite creators. Snap Judgments, for example. Gregor will probably be running some anti-venom decks.
I will this weekend. Yep.
There you go. So, check them out, get a feel for what they're going to be, and make your decision then. Our goal is to try and get this out to you as soon as we can so that you can see our perspective, what some of the people from our team have done, and then be able to take a look and see what creators outside of our team are able to come up with. But those are videos that are super easy to get that information as to what is worth spending your resources on. But it's just not easy to just pick up and play. And I think if that's the kind of player that you are and you want something that's a bit easier card, this is not the card for you.
Yeah.
Gregor, thank you so much for doing this again with me. I am going to
no problem.
immediately, after I hit stop recording, I'm going to copy this into 3 different places so that it does not get lost again and or corrupted. But thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate it again.
Yeah, no
Take
problem.
care. Everybody go follow Gregor. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll
You
see
as
you back
well.
on the West Coast very soon.
Safe travels.
Hi, everyone. It's Nick from the future here. It is Thursday the 7th, and I just wanted to follow up with a little bit of a postscript or prescript, depending on where I end up putting this in the video, about anti-venom. We talked about this a little bit in the video, that anti-venom is a good card in limited decks, but since we recorded, which was last Friday, there have been many more decks with a variety of ways to use anti-venom. A lot of them are easier to use than we initially thought. He's still not an easy card, and I still am not 100% sure he's worth the 6,000 tokens, but he's definitely worth more of a look than we initially thought, and a little bit more wide-reaching as far as his flexibility. I've had some luck playing a lot of Affliction decks, not even necessarily Ajax, but being able to bring out, a 0-0 Luke Cage can be really powerful and can give you some really big turn 6 swings. Do I still recommend him? It's still limited, but I think the recommendation that we gave might be a little bit stronger. Now, unfortunately, he's not in spotlights anymore, and I wish I could have gotten this video out earlier, but it's just something to consider and keep in mind when you are deciding what to do. We don't know when anti-venom is going to be back in spotlights. It could be another couple months. It could be another couple weeks. Based on the data mines that we have now, it doesn't look like that's going to happen, but it could. What I'm going to do is add down below some of the links to the decks that are doing really well right now with anti-venom. Take a look. If you have the cards, if you see a style that you really like and think, I really want to play this, maybe consider spending your tokens there. Still, if something like Mobius comes back into the meta, that destroys his ability. And right now we are seeing a little bit of Mobius, but Mobius isn't always going to be in the meta. We've seen Mobius come and go, and he always ends up going. If he's gone, then anti-venom is a lot more powerful. If you are playing Affliction decks, if you're playing decks where you just want to produce another card, there's one that I've been using recently that has Darkhawk and Ronin, and getting a 0-cost Ronin is pretty darn good, especially when Shadow King's in the deck and can reset that power. And that's another thing to consider. You've got Luke Cage and you've got Shadow King that can damage another lane and give you that power back that you had gotten taken away from anti-venom. So that's what I want you to think about. Look at those decks, see, does this fit me? If so, and you've got the tokens to spare, then maybe anti-venom is a consideration. Hopefully we'll have more data going forward for the new cards, and we're going to try putting these videos out a little bit later so we have a bit more time. You know, day or two afterwards, even a couple days, especially during last week, probably not enough to give us a really good idea. Again, like we said, it's not a card like Scorn, it's not a card like Toxin where the applications are pretty clear right from the get-go. Anti-Venom was a card that needed some time, and Gregor came up with a couple good decks as well as other players and creators out there. That's my thoughts. Take that for what you will, and we'll see you coming up soon for Frigga, who is in one of the Anti-Venom decks that I'm currently using right now thanks to Interrobang, and it's a mean deck, but it's very fun. Being able to copy a 0/0 Darkhawk or a 0/0 Ronin is incredibly powerful. It may not give you a ton of cube equity, but there are some really good wins that you'll have just by annoying people out of the game. I have got more retreats and got into the 90s after not really having played very much. Frigga, we'll get into that coming up. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a great one, and we'll see you in the next video.